The doorbell chimed just as I was sliding the lasagna into the oven. Perfect timing. Dylan had finally settled into his afternoon nap, and I'd planned to tackle the mountain of laundry waiting upstairs. I wiped my hands on my apron and headed for the door, expecting the usual package delivery. Instead, I found myself face to face with a woman who looked vaguely familiar. Tall, impeccably dressed in a cream blazer, her dark hair falling in perfect waves. The kind of woman who belongs on a magazine cover, not on my front porch on a Tuesday afternoon. Michelle Thompson? Her voice was steady, confident. I'm Sophie Grant. We need to talk about Ryan. My stomach dropped. I knew that name. I'd seen it pop up on Ryan's phone a few times, always dismissed with a quick, just a client when I'd asked. The way she said my husband's name, though. There was an intimacy there that made my fingers curl against the doorframe. I'm sorry, but Ryan's at work, I said, moving to close the door. You can reach him at the office. I know exactly where Ryan is. She pulled out her phone, tapped the screen a few times. He's at the Riverside Hotel, room 412, same as every Tuesday afternoon for the past 8 months. The world tilted sideways. I gripped the doorframe harder, my knuckles turning white. I think you should leave. Look. She held up her phone. The screen showed Ryan, my Ryan, kissing this woman in what looked like a restaurant. Another swipe. Them on a beach, his arm around her waist. Another, in bed, his face peaceful in sleep, the same expression I'd watched countless mornings. Stop. The word came out like a plea. I'm not here to hurt you, Sophie said, lowering her phone. I thought I was the only one until last week. Then I found out about you, about Dylan, about the mortgage payments he's been making on my condo while telling me he was separated. The smell of burning cheese suddenly filled the air. The lasagna. I turned mechanically toward the kitchen, Sophie following me inside uninvited. I pulled out the slightly blackened dish, set it on the counter. The mundane action felt surreal, like I was moving through water. Why are you here? I asked, still staring at the ruined dinner. Why tell me? Because we both deserve better than his lies. She placed a manila envelope on my counter. Here's everything. Photos, messages, bank statements, hotel receipts. Use it however you want. A cry from upstairs made us both freeze. Dylan, awake from his nap? The sound snapped me back to reality, reminded me who I was, who I needed to be. Get out, I said, my voice finding its strength. Now, Sophie nodded, almost sympathetic. One more thing. He's planning to leave you next month. Already has the papers drawn up. I thought you should know. She walked out, heels clicking against my hardwood floors. The front door closed with a soft click that echoed through my suddenly hollow home. Upstairs, Dylan called again. Mama. I looked at the envelope on my counter, then at my wedding photo hanging on the wall. Ryan's smile, the one I'd fallen in love with, now seemed more like a smirk. 8 years of marriage reduced to a manila envelope of betrayals. Dylan's cries grew more insistent. I touched my wedding ring, twisted it once, then pulled it off. It made a small, final sound as it hit the counter. Coming, baby. I called upstairs, my mind already racing with what needed to be done. Ryan would be home in 3 hours, expecting his perfect family, his perfect life. He had no idea what was waiting for him. I spent 3 hours memorizing every detail in that manila envelope, arranging the evidence of my shattered life on our bedroom floor while Dylan played with his blocks nearby. Each photo, each receipt, each loving message between my husband and his other life felt like another nail in a coffin I hadn't known I was lying in. When Ryan's key turned in the front door at exactly 6:30, I had everything back in the envelope, tucked safely in my mother's house across town. Dylan squealed, "Dada," from his playpen, and I watched Ryan scoop him up, plant kisses on his chubby cheeks, perform his role of devoted father perfectly. Something smells good, he said, walking into the kitchen where I stood at the counter, chopping vegetables with mechanical precision. New recipe? How was the Riverside Hotel? I kept chopping, not looking up. Room 412 meet your standards? The silence that followed was absolute. Even Dylan, still in Ryan's arms, seemed to sense the shift in the air. When I finally looked up, Ryan's face had that careful blank expression I'd seen him use with difficult clients. "Michelle, what are you talking about?" "Don't." The knife came down harder than necessary, splitting a carrot in two. Sophie Grant was here today. Interesting woman. Great taste in blazers, even better taste in evidence. Ryan set Dylan down, who immediately toddled off to his toys. "Whatever she told you." 8 months. My voice cracked slightly. "Every Tuesday afternoon. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Or did you just not care enough to hide it better?" "It's not what you think." He stepped closer, reaching for my hand. I pointed the knife at him and he froze. "Baby, please, let me explain." "Explain what? The condo you're paying for? The divorce papers you've already drawn up?" Each word felt like glass in my throat. "Or maybe explain how you've been playing house with her son while ours naps every afternoon?" His face changed then, something darker replacing the careful mask. "You went through my things?" I laughed, the sound harsh and foreign. "No, Ryan. Sophie did that for me. Turns out she didn't appreciate finding out about your wife and son any more than I appreciated learning about your girlfriend and her kid. This is exactly why I—" He caught himself, but not before I saw it. That flash of blame in his eyes. "Why you what? Why you decided to throw away 8 years of marriage? Why you've been lying to my face every single day?" I set the knife down before the temptation to use it became too strong. "Go ahead. Finish that sentence." Instead, he pulled out his phone, turning away slightly. I caught a glimpse of Sophie's name on the screen before he walked into the living room, speaking in low, urgent tones. I followed, fury building with each step. "Are you seriously calling her right now?" He held up a finger, the universal wait gesture he used to silence difficult clients. That's when something in me snapped. I grabbed his phone and hurled it against the wall. It shattered, pieces of screen scattering across our perfect hardwood floors. Dylan started crying from his playpen, but for once I didn't immediately run to comfort him. "Jesus Christ, Michelle." Ryan stared at his broken phone, then at me like I was a stranger. "Have you lost your mind?" "No," I said, eerily calm now. "But I found something better. Clarity." I walked to Dylan's playpen, lifted him out, and headed for the stairs. "We're staying at my mother's tonight. Don't bother calling." "Oh wait, you can't." "Michelle, stop. We need to talk about this like adults." I turned on the stairs, Dylan's tear-stained face pressed against my neck. "Adults? Like how you've been adulting with Sophie every Tuesday? Or how adult it was to plan your escape while playing happy family?" "I never meant—" "Save it for your girlfriend." I continued up the stairs. "Or better yet, save it for your lawyer, because that's who you'll be talking to from now on." His voice followed me up. "You're being hysterical. This isn't you." "You're right," I called back, throwing some of Dylan's things into a bag. "The old me would have believed whatever lie you're about to tell. But that Michelle? She died today in room 412. Lily's office always smelled like leather and coffee, a combination that usually calmed me. Not today." I sat across from her desk, Dylan asleep in his stroller beside me while she scrolled through Ryan's financial records on her computer screen. "This is worse than we thought," she said, turning the monitor toward me. "He's been moving money around for months. Small amounts at first, then larger transfers starting about 6 months ago." I leaned forward, the numbers swimming before my eyes. "How much?" "Nearly $200,000. Lily's voice hardened. "All going to an account under Sophie Grant's name." The room tilted slightly. "That was our safety net. Our future. Dylan's college fund. He told me the market was down, that our investments needed time to recover." "The market's fine. Your husband's morality, however." Lily started typing rapidly. "There's more. The condo he bought for her? It's in both their names." A knock at the door made us both jump. Mark Davis, Ryan's best friend, stepped in without waiting for an answer. The sight of him in his expensive suit, with that familiar apologetic smile made my stomach turn. "Michelle," he said, closing the door behind him. "Ryan's worried sick. He's been trying to reach you for days." "I'm in a private meeting with my lawyer," I said, gesturing to Lily. "You can tell Ryan he's not the bad guy here." Mark held up his hands. "Look, Sophie's been causing problems for months. Ryan was trying to handle it quietly, protect everyone involved." Lily stood up slowly. "Mark, as Michelle's legal counsel, I advise you to leave." "Did Ryan send you to spy on me?" The question came out sharp enough to make Dylan stir in his sleep. "Or did you volunteer?" Mark's expression shifted, something calculating replacing the concern. "You should know there are things about Sophie that would change how you see this situation." "Like what? That she has a son? That Ryan's been playing daddy to him while stealing from his own child's future?" I pulled out my phone, showed him the photo of Ryan with Sophie and her son at what looked like a school event. "Or maybe you mean how he's been building a whole second life while destroying this one. That money was to keep her quiet," Mark blurted. "She was threatening to go public, ruin his career. Ryan was protecting you." Lily's laugh was cold. "By buying her a condo and setting up joint accounts? That's an interesting definition of protection." "You don't understand." "No, you don't understand." I stood up, my voice steady despite the rage burning through me. "Ryan wasn't protecting anyone but himself. And you've been helping him, haven't you? Covering for him at those business dinners, lying to my face every time I called looking for him?" Mark's silence was answer enough. "Get out," Lily said, moving between us. "Before I call security." After he left, I collapsed back into the chair, my hands shaking. Ryan's already spinning his version of events. Let him. Lily returned to her computer. "Because while he's doing that, we're going to follow the money. Every transfer, every purchase, every lie he tried to hide." She paused, looking at me carefully. "But Michelle, once we start this, there's no going back. Ryan won't just lose his reputation. He could face serious legal consequences." I looked at Dylan, peaceful in his sleep, unaware that his world was crumbling. Then I thought of Tom, Sophie's son, another innocent caught in Ryan's web of lies. The fury that had been building since Sophie's visit crystallized into something colder, more focused. "Ryan's been playing both sides, thinking he's too smart to get caught," I said, turning back to Lily. "He used our money to build his perfect escape, convinced everyone to help keep his secrets. Now it's my turn. What are you thinking?" I pulled out the manila envelope Sophie had given me, along with a USB drive I'd found hidden in Ryan's office. "I'm thinking it's time to show him what it feels like when everything you've built comes crashing down." Lily smiled, a predatory gleam in her eye. "Then let's get to work." My mother found me in her guest bathroom at 3 a.m, scrubbing the already spotless tiles with violent determination. She didn't say anything, just sat on the edge of the tub and waited. The only sounds were Dylan's soft breathing through the baby monitor and the harsh scratch of the brush against ceramic. "I keep thinking about all the times I cleaned our house while he was with her," I finally said, my knuckles white around the brush handle. "Every surface I made perfect for him to come home to." "Michelle." Mom's voice was gentle, but I heard the steel underneath. "Put down the brush." I did, but my hands kept moving, searching for something to fix, to control. "Did you know Ryan called the school today? Tried to convince them to let him substitute teach your old literature class?" "What?" The steel in her voice became razor sharp. "He's trying to preserve his image, the caring husband, the devoted father, the pillar of the community." I laughed, the sound echoing harshly off the bathroom walls. "He even volunteered to coach Little League. That manipulative little—" A knock at the front door cut her off. We both froze, listening. It was followed by another knock, more insistent. "Stay here," Mom said, but I was already moving. Through the peephole, I saw Sophie, looking nothing like the polished woman who'd appeared on my doorstep days ago. Her mascara was smeared, her perfect hair disheveled. I opened the door. "It's 3 a.m. Ryan's engaged." The words tumbled out of her. "To neither of us. Her name's Amanda." They've been together for months. The world didn't tilt this time. It shattered. What? Sophie thrust her phone at me. On the screen was a private Instagram account showing Ryan at what looked like an intimate dinner. His arm was around a redhead I'd never seen before. The caption read, "Finally said yes to forever. Jiri's engaged. My forever." The post is from 2 hours ago, Sophie said. I only found it because her best friend follows my yoga studio's account. My mother appeared beside me, taking in Sophie's desperate state. Come inside before the neighbors start talking. In the kitchen, Sophie's hands shook as she pulled up more photos. Ryan and Amanda at Christmas. Ryan and Amanda on vacation. Ryan and Amanda looking at houses. He told me you were the obstacle, Sophie said, her voice breaking. That once the divorce was final, we could be together properly. But he told her I was just a client who got obsessed with him. And you... She looked at me. You don't even exist in her world. How long? The question felt like ground glass in my throat. The timestamps on these photos. Sophie scrolled through her phone. At least a year, before he even met me. My mother's hand found mine under the table, squeezing hard. You said she's looking at houses with him? Sophie nodded. In the same development where he bought my condo, using the same real estate company. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The missing money, the elaborate lies, the careful compartmentalization of his various lives. It wasn't just about affairs or escape plans. He's been running a scam, I said, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. The development, the real estate company. He's been using his relationships to sell properties, hasn't he? Sophie's eyes widened. The investment opportunity he kept talking about. He said if I just put in a little more money. How much? Mom asked sharply. Everything I had. Sophie's voice was barely a whisper. My savings, my son's college fund, even a second mortgage on my parents' house. The baby monitor crackled with Dylan's soft whimpers. The sound crystallized everything. My rage, my pain, my purpose. We need to call Lily, I said, standing up. Right now. Why? Sophie asked. Because this isn't about affairs anymore. It's about fraud. I looked at the photos again, at Ryan's practice smile, the same one he'd used on all of us. And we're going to make sure he never does this to anyone else. The sun was rising by the time we finished making our plans, painting the kitchen in shades of gold that felt like a promise. Or maybe a warning. The restaurant buzzed with Friday night energy as I watched Ryan charm his way through another business dinner. He hadn't noticed me yet, sitting alone at the corner table, nursing a glass of wine I hadn't touched. His arm was around Amanda, the ring on her finger catching the light as she laughed at something he'd said. 3 other couples sat at their table. All potential buyers for the new development, according to Lily's investigation. All about to invest their life savings in Ryan's elaborate house of cards. My phone vibrated. Sophie. We're in position. Mark just arrived at the office. I checked my watch. Right on schedule. While Ryan played his role here, Lily and a forensic accountant were meeting Mark at the real estate office, armed with enough evidence to make him choose between loyalty to Ryan and saving his own skin. Ready? Another text, this time from Mom, who was watching Dylan. I typed back, yes. Standing up, I smoothed down my black dress, the one Ryan had always loved, and walked toward their table. Amanda saw me first, her smile faltering as she tried to place my face. Then Ryan looked up, and for the first time in our marriage, I saw real fear in his eyes. Ryan, darling, I said, loud enough to carry. Aren't you going to introduce me to your fiancé? The table went silent. Amanda's hand flew to her throat, touching the necklace I recognized from our 10th anniversary. Ryan, who is this? Nobody, he said quickly, standing. Michelle, let's talk outside. I'm his wife, I said, pulling out my phone. Well, current wife, though I suppose that makes me the nobody in this scenario. I turned to the other couples. I assume you're all here about investing in Riverside Heights? Ryan grabbed my arm. Stop this, now. I shook him off. You might want to check the news first. It seems there are some irregularities with the development company. The FBI is particularly interested in the pattern of investment fraud. She's lying, Ryan said, but the couples were already pulling out their phones. This is just a domestic dispute. My phone rang. I answered on speaker. Yes, Lily? It's done. My lawyer's voice rang clear. Mark Davis just finished his statement to the investigators. They're executing the search warrant now. The color drained from Ryan's face. Amanda stood up, backing away from him. Ryan, what's happening? Would you like to tell her? I asked him. Or should I? About Sophie, perhaps? Or the other women? The houses you sold them with money that never went to the development? I turned to Amanda. Check your investment account. The one he convinced you to create for your future together. I'm betting it's empty. She fumbled with her phone, hands shaking. The horror dawning on her face told me everything. You're ruining everything, Ryan hissed, his charm cracking to reveal something ugly underneath. No, you did that yourself. I'm just making sure you can't ruin anyone else's life. The restaurant manager appeared, drawn by the commotion. Behind him, I spotted two men in suits entering, right on schedule. Mr. Thompson? One called out. FBI, we need you to come with us. Ryan's eyes darted around like a trapped animal's. For a moment, I thought he might run. Instead, he straightened his tie, that familiar mask sliding back into place. This is all a misunderstanding, he said smoothly. I can explain everything. As they led him away, Amanda threw her ring at him, the diamond bouncing off his perfectly pressed shirt. The other couples huddled together, shock and anger mixing on their faces as they realized how close they'd come to losing everything. I sat back down at my corner table, finally taking a sip of my wine. My phone lit up with a message from Sophie. Is it done? Yes, I typed back. He'll never hurt anyone again. The wine tasted bitter, victory mixing with something else. Not regret exactly, but a hollow feeling where satisfaction should have been. I thought it would feel different watching him fall. Instead, I just felt tired. My phone buzzed again. Mom had sent a photo of Dylan sleeping, clutching his favorite stuffed elephant. That's when the tears finally came. Not for Ryan, or the life we'd lost, but for the future we'd saved. The courthouse hallway felt endless as I walked toward the hearing room, my heels echoing against marble floors. Behind me, I heard the whispers, felt the stares. Ryan's arrest had made headlines, and now everyone knew the story, or thought they did. I pushed open the heavy doors, and there he sat, wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of his usual designer suit. The sight should have been satisfying. Instead, it made my stomach turn. Mrs. Thompson, his lawyer called out, intercepting me before I could sit down. A moment. In the corner, Ryan watched us with that familiar, calculating expression. I'd seen that look before, when negotiating house prices, when convincing clients to invest, when promising Sophie and Amanda their perfect futures. We have a proposition, the lawyer said quietly, one that could benefit everyone. Everyone meaning Ryan? Meaning Dylan. He paused, letting that sink in. My client is willing to sign over all his assets, make a full confession, if you agree to supervised visitation. The room tilted slightly. He's using our son as a bargaining chip? He's trying to make things right. A commotion at the door drew our attention. Sophie burst in, her face pale. Michelle, wait. There's something you need to know. The lawyer tried to intervene, but Sophie pushed past him. He's done it before. In Seattle, 5 years ago. Different names, different development, same scheme. Her voice cracked. A woman killed herself when she lost everything. Her daughter was Tom's age. The floor seemed to drop out from under me. I looked at Ryan, searching for any sign of remorse, any crack in his perfect mask. He just smiled. That same charming smile that had convinced me, convinced all of us, that he was something he never was. Your Honor, his lawyer started, but I cut him off. No deals. My voice sounded strange, distant. No visitation, no mercy. Ryan finally spoke, his voice carrying across the room. You're going to tell our son his father's in prison? That's your idea of protecting him? Better than letting him grow up thinking lies are love. I turned to the judge. I'd like to make a statement. But before I could speak, Mark Davis burst into the courtroom, clutching papers. Stop. Everything he told you about Seattle was a lie. There's more, so much more. The next hour passed in a blur of revelations. 3 cities, dozens of victims, millions stolen. With each new detail, I felt myself shrinking, drowning in the magnitude of what Ryan had done, what I had failed to see. Later, in the bathroom, I splashed cold water on my face, trying to wash away the horror of it all. The door opened and Amanda stepped in, her engagement ring gone. I thought I knew him, she said quietly. We all did. That was his gift. My reflection looked haunted, hollow, making us see what we wanted to see. The investigators found something else, Amanda said. In his private email, plans for after the arrest, for Dylan. My heart stopped. What plans? He has money hidden overseas, and people willing to... She couldn't finish. The world narrowed to a pinpoint. Ryan wasn't just trying to negotiate visitation. He was setting up an escape plan, with our son as leverage. I fumbled for my phone, called my mother. No answer. Called home. Nothing. Dylan's at daycare, Amanda said quickly, seeing my panic. I checked before coming here. He's safe. But for how long? The question echoed in my head as I ran from the courthouse, my carefully planned revenge crumbling around me. I'd thought exposing Ryan would end this. Instead, I'd just given him nothing left to lose. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You should have taken the deal. In that moment, standing in the courthouse parking lot with my world collapsing again, I realized the true cost of revenge. It wasn't just about exposing lies or seeking justice anymore. It was about protecting what mattered most, and I just made that infinitely harder. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. And this time, the stakes were higher than I'd ever imagined. The safe house felt like a cage, even with the FBI agents posted outside. Dylan slept in the next room while I paced, watching shadows move across unfamiliar walls. 3 days since Ryan's threat. 3 days of protective custody, waiting for the other shoe to drop. My phone buzzed. A text from an encrypted number Lily had set up. Movement on the offshore accounts. Large withdrawal in Singapore. Another buzz. Security breach at the courthouse. Ryan's gone. The bedroom door creaked. I spun around, heart racing, but it was just Sophie, her face ghost white in the darkness. They found Mark, she whispered, in his car. He's alive, but... A crash from Dylan's room cut her off. Before I could move, the window exploded inward and 2 figures in black burst through. I lunged for Dylan's room, but strong arms caught me from behind. Hello, Michelle? Ryan's voice, smooth as ever. Miss me? The overhead lights flickered on. Ryan stood in the doorway wearing a guard's uniform, his perfect mask finally cracked around the edges. 2 men held Sophie against the wall. Through the broken window, I saw the FBI agent slumped on the ground. Dylan stays asleep, Ryan said quietly. Or this gets messy. How did you... Money talks, especially to underpaid federal agents. He stepped closer, that familiar smile twisting into something cruel. You should have taken the deal. You're not taking him. My voice stayed steady, even as fear clawed at my throat. Actually, I am. But first... He pulled out a stack of papers. You're going to sign these. Full custody, no visitation, no contact. Your choice whether Dylan grows up thinking his mother abandoned him or died trying to stop me. Sophie made a small sound, and one of the men pressed harder against her throat. You really think you can disappear? I asked, playing for time. Every law enforcement agency in the country? We'll be chasing shadows while we're living comfortably in a country with no extradition treaty. Ryan's eyes flickered to Dylan's room. He'll forget you eventually. Children are adaptable. Something inside me shifted, a clarity cutting through the fear. I I saw Ryan clearly for the first time. Not the charming mask or the calculating monster, but something smaller, desperate. "You know what your mistake was?" I asked, taking a step forward. "Not the affairs or the fraud or even the threats. It was thinking you knew me." His smile faltered slightly. The old Michelle would have been paralyzed by fear right now, would have signed anything to keep the peace. "Another step. But you created this version of me, the one who learned to play the long game." A sound outside, car doors closing. Ryan's head turned slightly. "You taught me how to set a trap," I continued. "How to make someone so focused on one threat they miss the real danger." Shouts erupted outside. Ryan's men moved toward the window, dragging Sophie with them. "The offshore accounts?" I smiled. "A trail we wanted you to follow. The courthouse breach? Staged. Even the FBI agents outside were actors. The real team's been waiting for my signal since you walked in." The door burst open. Real agents poured in, weapons raised. Ryan lunged for Dylan's room, but I was already there, blocking his path. "You're right about one thing," I said as they took him down. "Children are adaptable. Dylan will forget you. And that's the best gift I could give him." Later, as dawn broke over the safe house, I sat with Sophie while the FBI processed the scene. "How did you know he'd come himself?" she asked. "Because he couldn't stand that someone else had outplayed him. His ego wouldn't let him trust anyone else to fix it." Dylan stirred in his sleep, clutching his stuffed elephant. I touched the small transmitter hidden inside it, the one that had been broadcasting everything to the FBI since Ryan's first threat. "The thing about revenge," I said quietly, "is knowing when to let it go. Sometimes the best victory is just making sure they can never hurt anyone again." Sophie nodded, understanding in her eyes. "What now?" I watched the sun rise, feeling lighter than I had in months. "Now we rebuild, but this time on our terms, not his." The envelope arrived on a crisp autumn morning, just as Dylan was mastering his first complete sentence. I recognized Sophie's handwriting immediately, though I hadn't heard from her since the trial. "Mama, look." Dylan pointed at a falling leaf while I opened the letter, his other hand gripping the playground railing. The park had become our sanctuary, a place where the whispers and stares couldn't reach us. Sophie's words blurred on the page. "I'm moving to Seattle with Tom. Starting over where Ryan first began his schemes feels right somehow, like closing a circle. The victims' families there. They deserve to know the truth, to heal." A child's laughter drew my attention. Tom was pushing Dylan on the swing, both boys oblivious to the weight of their shared history. Sophie had brought him for one last play date before their move. "They'll forget," Sophie said, appearing beside me. "That's what everyone keeps telling me, that Tom will forget Ryan, the promises, the pain." "But we won't," I replied, watching our sons play. "No." She handed me a newspaper clipping, Ryan's sentencing. 20 years, no possibility of early release. I heard he tried to charm the judge at the end. Some speech about redemption. Old habits. I folded the clipping without reading it. Did it work? The judge called him a predator in a prince's clothing. Sophie smiled slightly. Your testimony sealed it. The way you described his methods, his manipulation, it helped the other victims come forward. Dylan ran over, leaves stuck in his curls. Mama, swing. As I pushed him higher, I thought about Ryan's last words to me in court. You'll never truly be free of me. He'd meant it as a threat, but watching Dylan laugh, fearless and pure, I realized Ryan had given me something he never intended. Strength I never knew I had. The support group is helping, Sophie said when I returned. The other families, they understand. No judgment. Just healing. Is that why you're really going to Seattle? She nodded. They need someone who understands both sides, victim and accomplice. Her voice caught. I have to make it right. Tom called out to her, proud of something he'd found. The way she looked at him, fierce love mixed with lingering guilt, mirrored what I felt every time Dylan asked about his father. We protected them in the end, I said. That's what matters. You protected everyone. I just wish. She trailed off, watching Tom. I wish I'd been stronger sooner. I thought about the day Sophie first appeared on my doorstep, how that moment had shattered my world and ultimately rebuilt it stronger. We were strong exactly when we needed to be. Later, after they'd left for their new life across the country, I found a second letter in the envelope. This one was addressed to Dylan, marked, "For when he's older." I didn't read it. Instead, I placed it in the box where I kept the important things: Dylan's first drawing, the key to our new house, the business card for my recently launched consulting firm. Not to preserve the pain, but to remember the strength that grew from it. Dylan tugged at my sleeve, ready for his afternoon nap. As I carried him home, he pointed at a bird soaring overhead. "Free," he said, one of his new favorite words. I held him closer, thinking about Ryan's threat of never being free. He'd been wrong about that, just like he'd been wrong about so many things. Freedom wasn't about forgetting the past or even forgiving it. It was about choosing your own path forward, even when that path was harder than the comfortable lies we tell ourselves. "Yes, baby," I whispered to Dylan as he drifted off to sleep. "We're free." And for the first time since this all began, I truly believed it.
You two smell poor. The stench of poverty is wafting over here. Gross, it's going to soak into my expensive clothes. Poor people making under $50,000 a year need to disappear. When Matt and Sherry ran into me by chance, they looked at me with disdain. They even pitted Paul, who was next to me, as a low-wage worker with dirty hands. 15 years ago, Matt suddenly left me and remarried. His new partner was a doctor's daughter. What's so great about a doctor's daughter? Amid their laughter, Paul straightened his back and spoke up. Are you mistaken? $50,000 is my monthly income. What? For a moment, both of them furrowed their brows in confusion. But then they burst out laughing. Yeah, right, stop lying like a little kid. Amazing. Do you get your salary in $10,000 bills from a children's bank? I had always been scared of Matt. I couldn't stand up to him. But now, after 15 years, the tables have turned and it's time to show him. I am Angela Norman, a housewife in my 40s. I've been busy lately but finally got a haircut and a thorough head spa, which refreshed me. Touching my neatly trimmed hair sometimes makes my chest feel tight, because it reminds me of the past days that feel crushing. Please, just listen to a bit of my old story. I first got married almost 15 years ago when I was 27. Unfortunately, it wasn't a sweet honeymoon from the start. Right after the wedding, Matt quit his job and became a house husband. He felt undervalued at work and was stressed. It was always tough, but he seemed to have endured it by keeping up appearances. We started at the same company, but I regret not realizing his struggles. I was a full-time employee, so it was no problem. So, I vowed to support him. However, we're short on living expenses. As a house husband, Matt always seemed grumpy. He complained about the lack of living expenses every month. Are we short again? It's only mid-month. What can I do when the money you give me is so little? But I was able to live alone on half this budget. Suddenly, Matt glared at me. Are you saying it's my fault? It's impossible to suddenly get used to housework like a woman. I clean and cook for you, so why am I being complained at? Matt threw a tantrum like a child, stamping his feet and ranting quickly. Eventually, I stopped giving living expenses to Matt, and he managed my salary instead. I would get a monthly allowance of $200, but even that soon stopped. The budget is tight this month, too. I can't give you any allowance. Then, can you at least give me some money for the department's drinking party? A drinking party? You're too incompetent and earn too little to go to such things. Every time Matt shouted, I became afraid to speak. He wasn't always like this. He was a kind and cheerful man. I think he was beloved by both men and women at the company. His current attitude must be because he's tired. I thought to myself, just be kind to him for now, but that for now went on for 3 months. 6 months. I couldn't see the end of just for now. Here's your lunch sandwiches. I woke up early again today even though I'm still sleepy, just for you. He used to pack sandwiches with ham or tuna, but recently it's just cheese. But today's sandwiches are plain. I wonder if there's even anything in it. This month's salary was $2,700. Isn't that too little overtime? You understand we can't live properly with 2 adults on this, right? You should be grateful you can even eat a tuna sandwich with your incompetence. Yeah. Make sure your take-home next month is over $3,000. Okay. I want to do better, but somehow I can't muster the energy. As I nibbled on my breakfast toast, a sigh escaped me. Right after, Matt sighed even louder than me. Being a section manager isn't all that, huh? It's probably just because they have to give women positions too. Just picked you as section manager for the heck of it. If being a section manager meant better pay, then maybe, but look at this. A female section manager is just for show, the salary tells it all. I'm sorry. If I had been a section manager, I could have contributed more to the company. Maybe Matt decided to resign because I got a position before him, hurting his pride. If that's the case, his breakdown is my fault. I can't blame Matt. I have to obey him. After breakfast, I was brushing my teeth in the bathroom when I got a shock. In the mirror, there was an ugly old woman. Dark circles under her eyes, deep laugh lines, and her hair was a frizzy mix of gray. I have to do better. I wet my parched hands with cold water and tied my hair back. Once I fixed my hair, I transformed from an old woman to a dignified career woman. One day, I was out for work and headed straight home. It was earlier than usual. The area was still bright, with mothers with young children and students around. The station was nearby, but I started walking in the opposite direction. For some reason, the side towards the station felt gloomily dark. I didn't want to board the train that would take me to the home where Matt was waiting. Though it was nearly spring, the air was still a bit cold, and the wind stung my cheeks. When I touched my cheek, it felt rough and dry, probably peeling. Oh, a trendy cafe. I'd love a warm cafe au lait. But maybe I need a moisturizer more. I muttered to myself as I passed by the cafe when a man fast walked to me. Hello. He was wearing a crisp white shirt, a refreshing sight. It seemed like he was smiling at me. But there was no way he was talking to me, so I looked down. However, the man peered into my face. Are you interested in being a hair model? He was definitely looking into my eyes when he asked. I don't remember what he said next or how I responded. Before I knew it, I was sitting in a chair in a clean, stylish space. Getting my hair cut by a hairstylist named Paul. How does it look? About an hour later, the mirror reflected a younger version of myself. My hair, once frizzy, now had a glossy shine. There were no waves or frizz, and my fingers slid through it smoothly. It's like I'm a different person. You look very beautiful. I knew it was just a compliment, but I couldn't help but smile. I was a bit skeptical about being a free haircut model, thinking it might be a scam. But Paul truly worked magic on me. The sweet scent of shampoo wafted from my hair. Paul gently stroked my hair, and somehow, the tension in my shoulders and the rest of my body melted away. I used to think it didn't matter if my hair was frizzy or gray as long as it was tied back. But it feels good to be beautiful. If you'd like, please let me cut your hair again. Paul treated my hair with the care of a glass artisan. It had been a while since I felt cherished by someone. Just an hour ago, my legs felt heavy, but now they felt light. It was getting dark, and the station was lit up. I boarded the train with my back straight and went home. How's your day? What happened to your hair? As soon as he saw me, Matt's eyes widened. I answered with a shy smile. You know, I was asked to be a haircut model, so I got it cut. Oh, and it was free. Really free. Amazing, right? My overgrown hair is now a short bob. I didn't expect him to say it suited me. I hoped he'd say something like "you look refreshed," or "lucky it was free," and laugh. But Matt's face twisted in an instant. What? Free? That's a lie, right? You're a low earner and incompetent. And you just went off and spent money on your own, right? You leave me to do the housework while you go out and have fun? I was taken aback by his unexpected response and stumbled over my words. No, it really was free. Look, I don't have any money in my wallet. There's no way I could go to a salon. Are you indirectly asking for pocket money? You have a terrible personality. What? That wasn't my intention at all. When was the last time I had a normal conversation with Matt? Tonight's dinner was still in plastic containers from the supermarket. If I said, "This is tasty," he would likely snap. So you think store-bought food is better than anything I could make? If I tried to fold the mountain of laundry on the sofa, he'd surely get upset, thinking it was a dig at him. So, I always just dug out whatever clothes I needed from the pile. I noticed a few wrinkles, but if I ironed them, Matt would explode. I had always been careful not to upset Matt, who was struggling with his mental health. It was pointless to insist that the haircut model was free, or that I was happy my hair looked nice. I'm sorry. Recently, our conversations had devolved into Matt getting angry and me apologizing. That was all. Being with Matt was exhausting. However, the option to distance myself from him had never crossed my mind. I didn't want to cause unnecessary worry to people from our former workplace. So I told them Matt left his job to advance his career. That's why he still keeps in touch with former colleagues. If they found out I had abandoned him while he was unwell, I would probably feel very uncomfortable. Then I thought, I only thought about myself. Wanting to distance myself from Matt or worried about my status at work. I didn't even try to support Matt, who was suffering. I hated this cold-hearted side of myself. I didn't want to face Matt either. So, I began to live each day with an empty heart. Without any conflicts, thinking I was living peacefully. But the peaceful everyday life suddenly collapsed. I've decided to get married. When I returned from work, Matt suddenly announced this. Married? I was confused. We were already married. Matt began to tremble and then burst into laughter. I stood frozen in the entrance, still not understanding. Then, a woman I didn't recognize appeared from the living room door down the hallway. Matt casually draped his arm around her shoulder. I'm going to marry Sherry. The woman named Sherry nestled her cheek against Matt's chest and flashed me a triumphant smile. Sorry, ma'am. I'm taking your Matt. Taking him. Huh? But that's. I looked so confused and ridiculous that they couldn't stop laughing. Just like Matt said, "You really are a dirty old woman, ma'am." No wonder he wanted to cheat. But don't worry, we know it's not the wife who let him cheat but Matt who is at fault. Rest assured, we'll generously provide compensation. You're just a section manager but can't earn more than $50,000, such a useless woman. You want money, right? $10,000? $20,000? You can name any amount you like. My father is a doctor. We have money, so don't worry. And just like that, my marriage with Matt ended unceremoniously. I remember my parents, in their anger, demanded $50,000 in compensation. But we only received $10,000. It was frustrating, but dealing with Matt was too painful, so I reluctantly accepted it. That's the end of my sad story. 15 years after that divorce, I still occasionally think of Matt. Let's forget the past. I smoothed my freshly cut hair with both hands, trying to calm my troubled heart. The next day, I went to a suburban shopping mall with my husband. "Is that you, Angela?" A familiar, unforgettable voice called from behind me. Maybe it was just a hallucination because I had been reminiscing about the unpleasant past just the day before. "Ah, it is Angela." A man suddenly appeared in front of me. Could this be a hallucination too? I blinked several times to check, but it was definitely Matt. Sherry, his affair partner from that time, was also with him. Wow, nostalgic, it's Angela. This girl, my ex-wife. The stain on my life. Matt was as exuberant as if he had reunited with an old friend. Feeling a pang in my heart, I clung to my husband's arm. Huh? No way, a man? What, Angela, you remarried? Ah, congratulations on your remarriage. Matt and Sherry smirked unpleasantly. In contrast, my current husband, Paul, and I remained serious. Sherry looked Paul up and down from head to toe with a pitying expression. "Oh dear, your husband's hands are rough." "Oh, and so are yours, ma'am." "Poor thing, you must be struggling." Matt's gaze fell on our hands. "Wow, it's true. Those are definitely the hands of poor people who've struggled. So filthy. You two really stink of poverty." The stench of poverty is drifting this way. Ugh, it's going to soak into my expensive clothes. People making under $50,000 a year should just disappear. He approached us suddenly and started insulting us unilaterally. Matt exaggeratedly pinched his nose and waved his hands in front of his face. I don't know what poverty is supposed to smell like. But Sherry's strong perfume was far more unpleasant. I lightly held my nose, which felt like it could bend. Paul looked puzzled and asked, "An income of $50,000? What are you talking about?" "That's Angela's salary." Wow, Sherry, you still remember Angela's salary. Well, I have a good memory. Poor lady, working so hard just to make $50,000, right? I suppose your husband is also a low-wage worker being exploited. I remember, too. Sherry is a doctor's daughter. I wonder how great being a doctor's daughter is supposed to be. Amid Matt and Sherry's laughter, Paul straightened up and spoke. "Are you perhaps mistaken? $50,000 is the monthly income." What? For a moment, both furrowed their brows in confusion. But then laughter erupted from both of them. Nice lie. Stop with the childish lies, please. Wow, amazing. Do you get your salary in $10,000 bills from a children's bank? The two clutched their stomachs as if in pain from laughing. Matt and Sherry seemed more childish than actual children, offensively so in their lack of intellect. I had always been scared of Matt. I couldn't stand up to him. I still dream of him sometimes, and when I remember those moments, it feels like my chest is being crushed. But the Matt who appeared before me after 15 years was just a foolish bully, nothing to fear. What was I ever afraid of in Matt? It felt like a lump that had been stuck in my throat for a long time suddenly fell away. My voice flowed naturally. It's not a lie. My husband and I run a beauty salon. Nice lie. Beauty salons in fashionable areas have no entry for ugly old ladies. Oddly, Matt's taunts drifted past me like a light breeze. That over there is one of our beauty salons. I pointed at a beauty salon inside the shopping mall. Shall we drop by? I took Paul's arm and started walking. Matt and Sherry giggled as they followed behind us, probably expecting me to stop any minute and make up a ridiculous excuse. I walked confidently ahead of them and without hesitation, opened the door to the salon. Welcome. A female hairstylist greeted us pleasantly. Matt puffed up his cheeks, trying to hold back his laughter, and joked. It's a visit from the owners. Huh? Yes. Are you friends of the owner and the vice president? We're always grateful for their support. Huh? Caught off guard by the serious response, Matt and Sherry were stunned. Paul smiled warmly at them. Do you understand now that it wasn't a lie? This is one of the beauty salons we manage. Matt muttered with a frozen expression. It's a lie. It's not a lie. Looking desperate for me to tell him it was a lie, Matt looked at me for help. But I couldn't give him the answer he wanted because we truly are the owners of the salon. I still remember the day Matt left me. I thought I was supporting you through your struggles. But you cheated with wealthy Sherry and easily discarded me, which hurt a lot. Somehow, thinking about that day no longer made it hard to breathe. I felt as if I was finally free from Matt's spell. After Matt and I split up, I visited the beauty salon where I had been a hair model. When I felt like I was worthless to this world, I remembered how they treated my damaged hair as if it were precious. Could it be that this hairstylist is him? Did you marry him? That's right. I was drowning in sadness. But getting my hair dyed a bright color somehow lifted my spirits. Paul saved me when I wanted to disappear. At the time, Paul, still an apprentice, dreamed of owning his own shop. Inspired by him, I studied while working and obtained my cosmetology license. Around the same time, Paul realized his dream and opened his own shop. We managed the shop together as a couple and now run several stores. Paul is the president and I am the vice president. I continue to work as a hairstylist even though I'm an owner because I love it. Huh? That doesn't make sense. You, incompetent and low-paid, a hairstylist? An owner? That's a lie. Matt held his head in confusion. Matt used to mock me for being low-paid, but earning $50,000 isn't easy. It was scary to give up a stable job as a salaried worker. But I wanted to chase my dream with Paul. An old woman like you talking nonsense. Hairstyling is a job for young, cute girls. Indeed, I looked like a wreck and old before. But that's exactly why I aspired to be a hairstylist, to make people beautiful. Caught off guard, Matt examined me from head to toe. Dressed simply but neatly, I smiled gently at Matt. My face may have matured with age. But I'm not the broken old woman Matt had to insult anymore. I can clearly see that I shine brighter in my 40s than I did in my 20s under Matt's control. I'm living a fulfilling life, I conveyed, radiating happiness. As if a halo had appeared behind me, Matt squinted against the brightness and stepped back. A mere hairstylist acting so high and mighty. As Matt fell silent, Sherry sneered. A hairstylist who makes people beautiful? Hair alone doesn't change a person. Stuck in the past, I had been keeping tabs on Sherry's clinic. Her parents used to run a general practice, which at some point turned into a fancy beauty clinic. Likely, Sherry had started interfering in its management. My clinic creates women's beauty. Can a hairstylist remove facial spots? Can they rejuvenate and remove sagging? It's embarrassing for mere hairstylists who only mess with hair to act so superior. I don't believe that people aren't beautiful because they have spots or sagging. When you get your hair done, you naturally find yourself smiling. Just having clean hair can boost your confidence and help you like yourself more. Everyone who smiles is beautiful. But what's the point of being a breathtaking beauty with a flawless face if you're always frowning, right? Sherry twisted her smooth, egg-like face in displeasure. I've heard quite a bit about your clinic, Sherry. People come to you wanting to become beautiful. But I hear there are many cases of burns and swelling on their faces. What? Stop making weird accusations. My clinic has good reviews. Online reviews can be easily manipulated. But word of mouth directly from person to person? That's something you can't control, can you? Being well connected in the beauty industry, I hear all kinds of rumors, good and bad. I don't even need to look them up, the stories about her clinic just come to me. They say when someone goes to you to remove a single spot, you push them to treat other spots, pores, and sagging that they didn't ask for, right? I'm just trying to make them as beautiful as possible. And you also forcefully push products they don't need for home care, right? I'm just recommending good products. Sherry raised her voice in irritation. The hard sell tactics in a confined private room must be terrifying for the patients. I heard that even when patients clearly suffer burns from the treatments, you tell them it'll heal over time without proper care. I don't know anything about that. I'm not a doctor. It's my father's clinic, so it's none of my business. Indeed, she's not a doctor. That's strange. I've heard stories about the clinic's daughter. A reputedly skilled and beautiful doctor, performing procedures. Sherry opened her mouth with a smug look. Patients would rather have a beautiful woman like me handle their treatment than an old doctor. It's a beauty clinic, after all. Looks are everything. And you pretend to be a doctor? That's an exaggeration. I don't use any knives, it's safe. Lasers and injections are easy enough for anyone to do. Her attitude towards upselling, mishandling procedures, and even impersonating a doctor is chilling. I thought rumors might be exaggerated, but I can't believe they're actually true. I took out my phone from my pocket and said calmly, I'm making a report. Pretending to be a doctor and performing medical procedures without a license is a crime. Sherry gritted her teeth in displeasure. The one to stop me was Matt. A report? To the police? Come on, don't do that. Sherry seems numb to the reality, but Matt is different. He seems aware that they are committing illegal acts. What will happen to our clinic if you report us? Don't be vindictive just because I dumped you. It's not about our past, Matt. It's because I've now confirmed that there is a real problem with the clinic. When Matt realized I was serious, he quickly changed his tune. To be honest, I've been fed up with Sherry's way of doing things. She's too selfish, using her status as a doctor's daughter. I'm breaking up with her, it has nothing to do with me anymore. Go ahead and report. Meeting Angela again made me realize how awful Sherry is. Angela, you're a hard worker, and unlike Sherry, who just leeches off her parents, there's no comparison. Angela, you're a great woman. I like you. Matt's blunt confession made my skin crawl. I almost blurted out EW. What? After all the support I gave you, you say that? What's so great about being a doctor's daughter? You're just living off your parents' money. And besides, your parents don't even make as much as Angela does now. A nasty argument started. I didn't want anything more to do with them, so I pulled on Paul's arm to leave. Angela, wait. I'm serious about you. Matt tried to follow, but Sherry tackled him to the ground. Don't mess with me. If you're going to dump me for her, pay back all the money I spent on you. Enough with the money. You're rich, just keep throwing your money around. Their scuffle turned into a wrestling match in the middle of the mall. Security arrived to separate them. But Sherry broke free from a big man's grasp and lunged at Matt again. Angela, help. It's not about the money. I like you. Sherry mounted Matt and he reached out to me. It wasn't a laughing matter. But seeing Matt's front tooth broken like a bad skit made me burst out laughing. Shut up, you leech. Sherry, her egg-like face now veined with anger, headbutt him. They really are an aggressive couple. Paul and I aren't into wrestling, so we just exchanged looks and chuckled. I used to be a wife who only followed Matt. But Sherry clearly communicates her opinions and fists directly to Matt. They seem quite well matched. Later, as I had declared, I reported Sherry's clinic. It caused a major uproar with many victims emerging. The clinic was immediately shut down, and Sherry tried to disappear with her parents. But they were promptly sued by a group of victims and caught. Sherry, especially, faced severe charges for medical practices without a license, adding assault and fraud to her crimes, leading to a prison sentence without suspension. She won't be able to maintain her proud beauty inside prison. Matt was also suspected of complicity but was acquitted. However, during the investigation, embezzlement was uncovered. It seems he had been secretly selling the clinic's expensive home care products on a flea market site. Sherry reportedly screamed, "Give him the death penalty." But Matt only got a suspended sentence because the stolen amount wasn't large. There are no more problems between me and you, Angela. Let's start over. Later, unbelievably, Matt appeared before me. I've definitely cut ties with Sherry, who committed a grave sin. Angela, you're the best. I like you. Sorry for making you wait so long. He tried to strike a princely pose, but it was just gross. I'm not waiting for you. You've also committed a major crime and are on probation. You're not in a position to speak ill of Sherry. Don't be so tough. I'll treat you right this time. I could only be amazed at Matt's delusional thinking. If, just hypothetically, I were to start over with Matt. At my words, a sparkle appeared in Matt's eyes. I would have to quit the business I run with Paul. Even if I start a new job now, I doubt I'd make even $50,000 a year, let alone $50,000 a month. Would that be okay? However, the sparkle in Matt's eyes clouded over instantly. See, it's not me you love. You just love money. 15 years ago, I was concerned that I had wounded his pride by advancing in my career before him. But in reality, Matt has no pride. He just wants to be taken care of by a woman, to live comfortably without effort. If you love money so much, it would be quicker to earn it yourself. Oh, maybe you can't, which is why you leech off women. I remember I got promoted before you did. What? There's no way I'm inferior to you. You only got the section chief position because you're a woman, it's a special quota. I'm obviously better. It seems Matt did have a shred of pride after all. Although I had been submissive before, in his heart, he must have looked down on me as a woman. Who would bother with an old woman like you? After receiving this humiliation from me, whom he deemed inferior, he threw out these last words and disappeared. This should mean he won't come back to me anymore. Sometime later, I heard through the grapevine that Matt had been arrested by the police. He had been following young women around, and at one point even hugged one from behind. Maybe being scorned by an older woman like me made him want to prove he could attract younger women. Although he had a tendency towards emotional abuse, he wasn't the type to commit a crime before. Perhaps Sherry's ease with breaking the law had lowered his barriers to committing crimes. Environment is important, I suppose. Since it's been 15 years since we severed ties, it's entirely someone else's problem now. Thinking hypothetically about separating from Paul, I realized I have no intention of leaving him. I am thoroughly satisfied with my life with Paul. It might sound exaggerated, but I am the protagonist of my life. I don't want to return to the days when I was controlled by Matt, losing my emotions and merely surviving. I refuse to be a side character in someone else's story. Today, I went to see your shop. Is that so? You should have called me. You seemed busy. More importantly, the customers coming out of the shop were all smiles, constantly touching their silky hair. I suddenly remembered the first time Paul cut my hair. I was truly happy then. Holding on to that joy, I always pick up my scissors. I'm glad I became a hairstylist. What happened to you? Paul looked surprised but showed a smile. I look forward to seeing many more smiles tomorrow. Useless poor people who don't have money should get divorced. Saying that, David left the divorce papers and walked out. Lying in the hospital bed, I stared at the divorce papers in shock. I had been suspicious for a while, but still, to think he was really cheating on me. Moreover, he got his mistress pregnant. So he decides to ditch me because I am useless and unable to earn while hospitalized? Mom? Startled by the voice of my precious son, I looked up to see Ryan and my father standing there. My father frowned as he saw what I was holding. What are you going to do? It's already decided. I asked to be discharged from the hospital a bit early, pushing myself a bit, and headed to the bank where David was. My father, who drove me there, told me to hang in there, and dropped me off in front of the bank before driving away. As I entered the bank, I caught David's eye. He frowned when he noticed me. By chance, there were no other customers in front of him. I walked straight up to David. I'm closing all the accounts of our employees. What? Let's see if I can make him understand whose daughter he has angered. As David turned pale, I smirked. I am Ashley White, a 32-year-old company executive. I live with my 7-year-old son named Ryan, and my husband named David. David and I met at a mixer during our university days, hosted by a mutual friend. At the time, we weren't particularly interested in each other, and just exchanged contact information. Hey, weren't you at the mixer? Ashley, was it? Oh, David? The following year, By chance, I used the bank where he worked and we met again. This led us to start communicating frequently, and eventually, we began dating. We got married after I became pregnant with Ryan. David is known for his diligent and meticulous work, which has always made him the envy of our friends. I also felt fortunate to be married to someone like him. Mom, why has this happened? Just wait a bit. I don't know all the details yet, so I'll find out. Okay. Ryan, perhaps taking after David, is studious and curious. He asks what's this and why ye daily, keeping me on my toes with my own studies. Ryan admires someone unexpectedly, not David, but my father. My mother passed away from an illness, and my father, despite being busy with work, raised me single-handedly. Sorry, I still don't really like your father. Well, can't help it, but don't say that to him. He's quite sensitive about it. No way I'd say that. My father is a kind man, but he looks tough and somewhat intimidating. David is uncomfortable around my father because of his appearance. My father is aware of this and tries not to interfere too much. Thanks to that, we had a peaceful life at first. However, that changed as soon as we got married. Hey, where did you put my smartphone? Don't talk like that. Isn't it just on the charger? David, grumpy first thing in the morning, was actually charging his phone before he went to sleep. No apologies or thanks, but he just grimaced, which irritated me even more. David changed drastically after we got married. He keeps saying, I'm an elite banker. Thanks to me, you can live a comfortable life. However, he doesn't contribute financially at home. He spends his salary on himself, yet he acts as if he's supporting our household. In reality, I'm the one supporting our family finances, paying for utilities and groceries. Yet, if I take Ryan out for a meal on weekends or buy new clothes, he immediately complains. It seems he can't stand us enjoying any luxuries, no matter how minor. Hey! What's this new outfit? It's Ryan's. His old clothes were getting too small. Don't splurge with my money. I paid for it with my salary. I don't even have your passbook. On the other hand, my father is willing to spare no expense for us. This condo is too small, isn't it? So, I bought the one David wanted to live in. If you live there, I can be nearby without living together. He smiled as he purchased the condo and gifted us the top floor. And he also lived in the same building, ensuring we could call on him if needed. Mom, can I go to Grandpa's? Sure, but even though it's the same building, don't stay too late. Come back before it gets dark. Okay. It's natural that Ryan feels closer to his grandfather than to his father, David. Whenever he has time, Ryan goes to see my father. Where's Ryan? With Dad. Interestingly, David never complains to my father. And he tries not to complain about Ryan either, fearing he might tell on him. David only shows his assertiveness towards me. I keep quiet so as not to bother my father. If it's just complaints, I can ignore them. That was my light-hearted attitude. Thus, David has not participated in parenting at all. I got called by Hannah, so I'm heading out. What? Again? Taking time away from parenting is David's childhood friend, Hannah Baker. I dislike her, or rather, I hate her. David and I are like siblings. So, please don't misunderstand. Every time she sees me, she says things like that. On top of that, she tries to assert dominance by claiming she knows David better than I do with remarks like, the old David would have. It's really bothersome. And what makes it even more complicated is that David's mother adores her too. Why did David choose such a woman instead of marrying Hannah? He should have married Hannah. Whenever I'm called over to my in-laws, my mother-in-law deliberately says things like that loud enough for me to hear. Each time, my father-in-law scolds her, but she doesn't seem to care. Hannah claims to be a natural at being doted on. I'm just naturally affectionate with David. I don't mean to make you uncomfortable, Ashley. It would be one thing if she were younger, but she's 28, old enough to know better. The only reason they never got together was because of my father-in-law. I wouldn't want to call that woman my daughter-in-law, even out of duty. If it really comes to it, I'd divorce you. Hannah is not exactly a good person. She's notorious for playing around with men and lives a freeloader lifestyle, relying on David to buy her anything she wants. My father-in-law despised her and was vehemently opposed to their relationship. I could never understand why my mother-in-law dotes on Hannah so much. I'm sorry you have to deal with my wife. You shouldn't be the one apologizing. David is also to blame. He doesn't defend his wife when she's insulted, and instead, he's close with that woman. True to my father-in-law's words. No matter what my mother-in-law says about me, David never defends me. Sometimes, he even laughs. Grandma, why do you say such things? If Mom hadn't met Dad, I wouldn't have been born. Am I an unwanted child to you? No, that's not true. Ryan always stands up for me. Although he doesn't understand exactly how children are made. He knows that it takes both parents to have a child. My mother-in-law dotes on him too, so she refrains from saying such things in front of him. It seems that David and his mother are alike in that respect. Which makes me realize that parents and children often resemble each other. I have a plan to drink with Hannah tonight, so I'll be late. Oh, I see. Gradually, I started to wonder if we really needed David in our lives. And I began preparing for a divorce. Ryan seemed to sense something was up. If there's anything I can help with, just tell me, he said, showing his concern for me. Just then, I was summoned by my mother-in-law. I didn't want to go, but she kept calling me repeatedly. To the point it would affect my work if I didn't show up. My husband isn't here right now to carry heavy things. So, can you buy some flour? Apparently, my father-in-law was on a business trip. I thought to myself that she could just order it online. But I knew better than to say that out loud because it would only lead to more noise. After carrying heavy items after work, I was exhausted. As I absent-mindedly headed to the condo, my body was thrown by a car. It seems a car that ran a red light hit me. The car that hit you fled the scene, and we are currently investigating. I was informed in the hospital bed. For now, I left Ryan in the care of my father and decided to stay in the hospital for a while. I broke my arm, so I couldn't do much work. My father scolded me, saying, "Worry about your own health first." Ryan, my father, and my father-in-law, who rushed back upon hearing the news, visited me frequently, but David and my mother-in-law never came. Well, that was within my expectations. I'm coming in. What? So, I was surprised when David came into the hospital room. Sign this. David placed a divorce paper in front of me, already signed by him. With that arm, you won't be able to work. Now that you can't earn money, you're useless to me. What are you talking about? Besides, Hannah is pregnant with my child. My mind went blank. Hannah was pregnant with David's child. I'm marrying Hannah. So, just sign this quickly. Saying that, David quickly turned his back on me, as if he had no more use for me. Useless poor people who don't have money should get divorced. Saying that, David left the divorce papers and walked out. Lying in the hospital bed, I stared at the divorce papers in shock. I had been suspicious for a while, but still, to think he was really cheating on me. Moreover, he got his mistress pregnant. So he decides to ditch me because I am useless and unable to earn while hospitalized? Mom? Startled by the voice of my precious son, I looked up to see Ryan and my father standing there. My father frowned as he saw what I was holding. What are you going to do? It's already decided, I answered, looking straight at my father, who nodded in agreement. Now, let's see about getting some payback. I asked to be discharged from the hospital a bit early, pushing myself a bit, and headed to the bank where David was. My father, who drove me there, told me to hang in there, and dropped me off in front of the bank before driving away. As I entered the bank, I caught David's eye. He frowned when he noticed me. By chance, there were no other customers in front of him. I walked straight up to David. I'm closing all the accounts of our employees. What? David's expression said, what are you talking about? I noticed a few people looking annoyed as I stood at the counter without taking a number. Oh, sorry. Perhaps you don't understand without the company name. What are you? Recently, I succeeded my father as the president. The company name is Smith Corporation. What? Smith Corporation is an IT company that my father founded, which now employs 1,900 people. It has grown rapidly in one generation, and is quite well known in this area and in the industry. That's why David was so surprised. That's a lie, right? You just want to get back at me. If you think so, why don't you check? Upon hearing my words, David immediately started verifying something. While David was checking, I looked around. Since I had mentioned the company name, those around us were watching our situation. Oh no. Huh, no way? It seems he confirmed it, looking up at me cautiously. You're really from that Smith Corporation? Now I'll show him whose daughter he is angered. While David turned pale, I smirked. So, please cancel the accounts quickly. Wait, you can't just do that suddenly. If you cancel all these accounts at once. By the way, my father is also very angry about this. Just pack your things and leave the condo. What? Why do I have to be kicked out? It seems he has forgotten that the condo was purchased by my father and that it's in his name. Well, otherwise, he wouldn't have been living there with Hannah while I was hospitalized. Remember? That condo was bought by my father, the previous president. You haven't contributed a single penny, and on top of that, you haven't been paying any living expenses, have you? You're just supporting your childhood friend and mistress, Hannah. In fact, you've been living on my salary alone. Who do you think has been earning the money we live on? That's. And now, because she's pregnant, you expect me to hand over the condo to you and your mistress? How much more are you going to disrespect me? I purposely raised my voice so those around could hear. This, of course, made David panic. After all, he has a reputation for being serious. And here he is, not spending a dime at home but cheating with a childhood friend. The glances around us turned colder. Is that true? Huh? The person who addressed me was the branch manager of the bank. He had been there for a while and heard our conversation. It seems I need to talk to you in detail. I'm very sorry for the inconvenience caused by our bank employee. Then, the branch manager apologized deeply. I was led to the back where David, the branch manager, and I had a discussion. There, I explained the situation in detail to the branch manager. I deeply apologize for the inconvenience we've caused. The branch manager sighed heavily and apologized again. And next to him, David, looking displeased, was made to apologize by the manager. I can understand why you wouldn't want to entrust your important money to a bank that employs such a person. If you decide to cancel, we will make the arrangements. I'm no longer his wife. If you agree to one condition, I'll reconsider the cancellation. Both looked up hopefully at my words. It was a good offer for the manager, but the worst possible condition for David. If you fire David White, I will continue to do business with this bank. What? That's natural. I was already planning to fire him. It seemed that the manager had already intended to do so. David initially looked confused, but his face gradually turned red. Just as he was about to say something. Excuse me, but a person claiming to be Ms. Smith's father has arrived. Another bank employee came to us. I had asked the manager to let him in, and David, frustrated, shut his mouth. What? Why do I have to deal with this too? Huh? Mom? David muttered. Sorry, I kept you waiting. My father entered, firmly holding my mother-in-law's arm. Seeing me, she glared at me sharply. This is your doing. What are you planning? Even if I'm your mother-in-law, I'll never forgive you for treating me like this. Silence. When my mother-in-law started shouting, my father, with an even scarier look on his face, sharply rebuked her. Not just my mother-in-law, but even David let out a short cry and fell silent. I know you've been harassing my daughter. You keep calling her for errands and making her buy and carry heavy things. Despite that, instead of thanking her, you say that woman Hannah, who's a mistress, is better in a way that my daughter can hear. And David, instead of defending her, you just laugh. And the child has to stand up for her. My father's angry voice resonated well through the bank. David tried to intervene, but he was silenced by my father's glare. Also, I know that Hannah Baker was the one who ran over Ashley. That woman has already been arrested by the police. No, can't be. Hannah wouldn't do such a thing. What are you surprised about? You're the main culprit. My father scolded her further. Meanwhile, David, not knowing it before, was frozen in shock. You two are the worst kind of a parent and child. Ashley, let's go. Yes. Encouraged by my father, I headed outside. The manager followed us, apologizing repeatedly. Thinking that I might continue the contract with this manager. I heard David and my mother-in-law arguing loudly behind us. It seemed they were blaming each other. Their voices were heard outside, and the customers and other bank employees who were present whispered, so what we heard was true. Just as planned. Yes. They reacted just as I expected, thankfully. We walked out of the bank laughing, having carried out our plan as expected. As a result, David was successfully fired. Thanks to the police conducting a thorough investigation. Hannah received a prison sentence. As for my mother-in-law, it was discovered that she conspired with Hannah to arrange the hit-and-run to get rid of me. And called me out, leading to her being taken by the police and divorced by her husband. Hi, Mom. Hi, Grandpa. Thank you for taking care of Ryan, Mr. White. No problem. It looks like you've settled everything well. After confronting David and my mother-in-law at the bank, I went to pick up Ryan, who I had left in the care of my father-in-law. He had also helped a lot this time, having found evidence that my mother-in-law had incited Hannah to devise a plan to eliminate me. and submitting a note detailing this plan to the police. When I thanked him for all of this, he smiled and said, "You did well." From then on, I became busier than ever. Already busy as a future president and an executive, I now had even greater responsibilities since I had become the president. Meanwhile, my father started a new company. I've been thinking of starting a new company for a while. Saying this, he eagerly pushed the presidency onto me, to show David a thing or two. Therefore, both my father and I became busier, so my father-in-law took care of Ryan. It turns out that my father-in-law's business trip was forced due to my mother-in-law's affair with the boss. He retired early and moved into a vacant room in our condo. I'm studying for remote work now. I'm planning to entrust him with work someday, and have sent someone knowledgeable to teach him. He seems very capable, so I definitely want him to showcase his skills at the new company. It seems that our fathers have hit it off after this incident, often visiting each other's rooms to drink and talk about various things. On the other hand, David, who was driven out, apparently went back to his empty parents' home. Unable to find re-employment at any bank and with rumors spread everywhere by my father and me, he couldn't get hired anywhere and had to pay me alimony with loans. Now, he spends his days working tirelessly at part-time jobs. And although he begged us for help, our family unanimously ignored him. He was once rumored to be a promising candidate for branch manager, but he has fallen far from grace. When I grow up, I want to be like Grandpa. This incident made Ryan respect his grandfather even more. He seems to view him as a hero who saved him from the unpleasantness caused by David and my mother-in-law. If that's the case, will you take over Grandpa's place someday? Yes. Ryan's commitment to follow in his footsteps made my father very pleased. Determined not to be outdone by such a doting father, I decided to work even harder. After a while, both my company and my father's company began to stabilize. "Oh, Mom, welcome back. You must be tired, Ashley." Still exhausted when I returned home, my father-in-law had prepared dinner. "I helped out today too." "Did you?" "That's great, Ryan. I'm looking forward to dinner." I praised Ryan, who smiled back at me. Later, my father also returned home, and the four of us gathered around the dinner table to eat and chat. In stark contrast to us, David's family had fallen apart. David, overwhelmed by debt, eventually turned to loan sharks. And rumors say he was last seen being put on a boat. David's family home was sold to pay off his debts, and my mother-in-law, having lost her place to return, was seen living under a bridge by an acquaintance. By the way, I received an apology letter from Hannah's parents. They're good people, so I hope you'll read it. If you say so. According to the letter from Hannah's parents, she had given birth in prison. They took in the child to ensure that after her release, Hannah would not depend on them, moving far away instead. The letter also contained a deep apology to me. Hannah's parents seem like very good people. I truly hope the child grows up resembling the grandparents rather than the parents. Thus, Hannah now also has no place to return. I hope she contemplates her actions alone in her solitude. Years later, we no longer suffer from David's presence, almost forgetting he was ever a father. It seems Ryan vaguely remembers, but he dismisses any relation as irrelevant. We, too, have entirely forgotten their existence. I've decided to take over Grandpa's company after all. If that's what you've decided, I won't oppose it. Ryan chose to succeed in my father's company, a toy company. Starting as an ordinary employee, Ryan, who is valued for his continuous stream of ideas, might take over the company sooner than expected. Maybe it's time I handed over the company to Ryan. My father laughed at the thought. He plans to retire to the countryside once he entrusts the company to Ryan. I have also found a successor, vigorously training him. Once he is sufficiently experienced, I might consider retiring early to start a new path. With these thoughts, I continue to dedicate myself to my duties as president today. I'm sorry, I snagged such a wonderful fiancé. Are you upset that I'm happy? Jealous? Why do those who can only look down on others end up with such ugly faces? The once cute face of my sister now seemed distorted before me. My sister and her husband looked down on not only me but my husband as well. My anger reached its peak, and I exceeded my limits of tolerance. My name is Megan. I am 27 years old, working at a printing company. I work in printing, but I'm not operating the large machines. My department handles design. We create flyers and catalogs for various industries based on customer requests. Although the number of prints has decreased with digitalization, designing is still very busy and fulfilling. Thankfully, I have more customers requesting my services. When you designed the flyer for the last Christmas event, it was a big hit. Everyone said it was cute. Receiving such comments truly makes me happy. My job is my passion. Just when I thought I might end up single for life because I was so devoted to my job, my father was hospitalized for appendicitis. When I went to visit him, a young doctor named Howard, who is now my boyfriend and recently became my fiancé, approached me saying, "Hello. Are you here to visit someone today? You never know where life might lead you." Despite saying I was devoted to my job, I started buying bridal magazines as soon as marriage came up. I might be getting a bit carried away, flipping through the magazine while having coffee in the living room. That's when it happened. A hand suddenly snatched the magazine away from me. "Hey! What's this? A bridal magazine? Why are you looking at something like this? It's none of your business, Sarah." It was my sister named Sarah, 2 years younger than me, that snatched the magazine away from me. "You getting married, huh? Look in the mirror before you say that. You should know your place. You don't even have a boyfriend, right? Unlike you, I have one anytime. You know, my current boyfriend is." No one asked, but my sister started bragging about her boyfriend. She has always been like this. Unlike me, who has an ordinary face, my sister has always been cute and very popular. Everyone around her spoiled her, except for our parents and me. As a result, my sister grew up thinking she is the center of the world. She became arrogant and eventually started looking down on me, her older sister. "Stay away from me. I don't want your face to rub off on me. Even if you study hard with that brain, you won't get good grades. Just stop wasting your effort, huh?" Again, I got asked out. It's tough being so popular. Poor sister who never gets any attention, and so on, she kept saying. Even though our parents scolded her harshly, it was too late. My sister's personality did not change, and the verbal abuse towards me did not stop. As an adult, she still continued to look down on me. Tired of my sister's bragging about her boyfriend, I sighed and finally said, "I do have a boyfriend, and actually, we're engaged. I'm getting married soon, that's why I'm looking at the magazine." At that moment, my sister stopped in her tracks. She stared at me intently and then smirked with a snide smile. Huh, someone actually likes you? Wonder what he saw in you. He likes my cheerful and energetic personality. That sounds fake. You're probably just treated like a maid. I'm going to keep working, so being a perfect housewife is out of the question. He understands that. My sister reacted with exaggerated surprise. What? You're keeping your job even though you're getting married? Poor thing, marrying a poor man. I bristled at her words. She can't seem to be satisfied unless she looks down on me. Money is not an issue. He is a doctor, and his income is more than adequate. I just want to continue working because I enjoy it. When I snapped back, my sister suddenly fell silent. I sighed in relief and returned to my room. A doctor. I see. She muttered meaningfully without my knowledge. When it comes to marriage, the first thing to do is to introduce him to the parents. Howard came to my house for the introduction. I was relieved that my sister happened to be absent, as I had a bad feeling about it. However, the atmosphere changed instantly when my sister showed up. This guy is your fiancé? He's quite handsome. Sarah. Weren't you supposed to be out? Canceling that for my sister's fiancé's visit was a given. In the past, when we were students, my sister had stolen my boyfriend several times. As a working adult, I hadn't had a boyfriend, so it hadn't happened. But my sister kept getting new boyfriends one after another. The presence of my sister made me uneasy. But I hoped she had grown up and wouldn't do something like stealing my fiancé. However, she was overly familiar with my fiancé, who seemed to blush. My worst fears were confirmed. Let's pretend this marriage never happened. I've decided to break up with you and start dating Sarah. I never thought my sister would steal a boyfriend even after becoming an adult. I'm sorry I took your fiancé. But it can't be helped, right? I'm cuter and more attractive, and Howard was really into me. Oh, being cute is such a crime. My sister said this with arrogance and not a hint of apology. While Howard also laughed next to her. Really, I had no idea you had such a cute sister. If I knew, I wouldn't have gotten engaged to you. Lucky it was before the wedding. The moment I saw that twisted smile, any feelings I had for him disappeared completely. What remained was only disgust. I'm glad too. I wouldn't want to marry someone like you. A man who easily goes to another woman. I'll gladly give you to Sarah with a bow on top. She's just making excuses. Really. Till the end, not cute at all. I wasn't making excuses, but I seriously thought so. But it seemed the two of them, lost in their delusions, didn't get it. Interacting with you guys is just a waste of time. Goodbye. Making excuses, see ya. I say the same. It's a waste of time. I'll never meet you again, bye. Until the end, they looked down on me, and the two of them left. After that, my furious parents banned them from coming over, so I never met them again. I heard through the grapevine that they got married. I couldn't care less now. 3 years have passed since I parted ways with my sister and her husband. And I turned 30, still fully engaged in my work. During this time, a customer became fond of my work and started requesting me repeatedly. His name was Kevin Anderson. As Kevin and I talked through work, I somehow found myself invited to dinner. Then, he asked me out on a date. On one of our dates, he proposed a serious relationship. To be honest, I was very happy. Kevin was a very sincere man, and I didn't think he would be like my ex. But, it seemed that my sister had become quite a trauma for me. Maybe, but I couldn't help but worry a little. So, I told him the truth about my sister and my ex-fiancé. I even showed him a photo of my sister to gauge his reaction. However, looking at my sister's photo, his expression remained unchanged. He looked away from the photo indifferently and gave me a kind, gentle smile. It might be weird to say this, but, I used to be quite popular. I've met many women, cuter and more beautiful than your sister. Even so, for some reason, none of them ever excited me. I thought maybe I'd end up single for life, but I was wrong. What do you mean? I believe I have a good eye for people because of my job. No matter how beautiful or well-dressed, it can't match inner beauty. I realized that after meeting you. What do you mean? I thought you were shining. Huh? When you talk about your work, you come alive and shine, and I find that beautiful. I thought it was wonderful. Even when we're not working, whether we're having dinner or on a date. You always seem to be enjoying yourself with a smile. I could tell you were genuinely enjoying our time together. You seem to enjoy life so much, it's almost dazzling. What? Hold on, this is so embarrassing. Kevin continued as I panicked. Megan, you are beautiful. More beautiful and charming than anyone else I've met. I really hope you will consider a relationship with marriage in mind with me. I truly. Stop. That's enough, it's too embarrassing. My face turned bright red as I stopped him, but Kevin's words didn't cease. Eventually, I agreed to the relationship, and his flattering words continued for a while. Oh, so embarrassing. A year later, Kevin and I got married, and we became husband and wife. Married life was going smoothly, and I felt we became even closer than before. We both did household chores when we could. My husband, having lived alone for a long time, might be even better at domestic tasks than me. His cooking, when I was too tired to do anything else, was incredibly delicious. We often went out together on days off. One holiday, Kevin said he wanted to look at some furniture, so we went out. It was then that I had a nightmare-like encounter with the devil again. Hey! I thought I saw some plain woman, and it was you. As I was looking at the bedding section, I heard a voice from behind. I knew without looking. Even after not seeing her for 4 years, she was unforgettable. Sarah. There stood my sister, with my ex-fiancé Howard by her side. Her features seemed harsher than before. Perhaps with age or her personality coming to the fore. Howard, standing beside her, was grinning, though he seemed thinner. Fancy meeting you here. What are you doing? Nothing special. Just looking at furniture. This place has a lot of expensive imports, you know? It's not somewhere for someone like you. As usual, my sister's condescending attitude was exhausting. Howard nodded in agreement. Exactly. If people like you come here, it'll lower the store's class. They'll think we're poor too. Just go home. I was irritated by their words, but responding was a waste of time. I remained silent. However, my silence seemed to irritate them even more, and their voices grew louder. Oh no, this is awful. This high-end store is ruined. Why would such a poor person come here? You can't even afford anything. That's right, poor people should go home. Other customers and the staff began to look over, wondering what was going on. Frustrated, I reached for my husband's hand to leave, but he didn't move. It was then that my sister and her husband finally noticed him. Oh. Who are you? I'm Megan's husband. My sister's eyes widened. Huh? You married this plain Jane? Seriously? Brave of you. Did you need a maid or something? Hilarious. We both do the household chores. It's natural since we both work. Really? Both working? Poor thing, your wife has to work because you're so poor. Poor you. As for me, I'm a full-time housewife living a comfortable life. We eat out more than half the week. We have money, so we hire someone for the housework. Sorry for being on the winning side. My sister's taunting and irritating way of speaking stretched my patience thin. She smirked at me as she spoke. I'm sorry for taking your wonderful fiancé. Thanks to that, you're stuck in a poor life even though you're married. And with such a dull man. You two are perfectly plain together. Aren't you upset that I'm happy? Jealous? Marriage to a man who can't even support his wife, typical of you. Suffer for life, you losers. That was the last straw. I could tolerate comments about me, but not about my husband. Listen, enough is. Megan, it's okay. Just as I was about to yell, my husband stepped forward. Nice to meet you, I'm Kevin, your sister's husband. Your name is lame too. Thank you for that. Since we're here, here's my business card. As Howard took the business card, my husband looked at my sister. You say quite harsh things about Megan. It's the truth. Ugly women can be called ugly. That's my law. There's no such law. And to me, you're far uglier. Excuse me. Shall we call it the ugliness of your nature? You seem confident in your appearance. But don't you realize that your distorted personality shows on the outside? His words were polite, yet remarkably cutting. My sister's face quickly turned bright red. Don't joke. What about me is ugly? Everything. Beautiful people don't envy their sisters and steal their fiancés. What? When have I ever been jealous of Megan? People strive to get close to and surpass those they admire. Isn't Megan such a person for you? No, that's not it. I was surprised, not only by my husband's words but even more by my sister's reaction. I had never thought about it that way because my sister always looked down on me. But seeing her flustered, I began to wonder. If you don't care about someone, if they really don't matter to you, you would just ignore them. You wouldn't think to steal whoever Megan might bring around. Because they are not the partner you chose for yourself. Stealing from someone else means there is envy. Which you couldn't get something on your own that someone else did. I'm telling you, I'm not jealous. By stealing, you want to feel superior to others, right? It means you lack confidence. Confident people don't need to do that. They can live proudly without such acts. No, that's not. My sister was desperately trying to counter, but her voice was losing its strength. Hey! This name is. As if breaking the brief silence that had fallen, Howard suddenly shouted. He looked pale as he alternated his gaze between the business card and my husband. Shaking my sister's shoulder. What now? This name. I thought it looked familiar, so I checked, and oh. What? Kevin Anderson? What about it? The name of the hospital where I work. Huh? The hospital? Oh, right, Anderson Medical Corporation, The chairman and chief physician, Dr. Anderson. Kevin is his son. Huh, what? What? It's a common surname, it could be someone else. I've seen him at the hospital a few times with the chairman, so it's definitely him. It was from a distance, so I didn't remember well, but I thought he looked familiar. If he's the son, he must be a doctor, right? What does that business card say, the company name? Oh. Not all doctors' sons have to become doctors. Besides, this company. It's a very famous pharmaceutical company. I heard the grandfather was getting old and passed it on to his grandson. Indeed. I'm that grandson. As the flustered couple faced him, my husband smiled slightly. What the? Oh no. As my sister screamed almost like a wail, and Howard seemed about to collapse. My husband calmly informed them. I met Megan through my work, which I was doing until I took over my grandfather's duties. I had heard about her sister, but this is beyond what I imagined. That. Struggling for words, my sister turned to Howard. The work of helping people requires compassion. Yet, you not only lack compassion, but you belittle and mock others. Who would want to be saved by such a doctor? That's a misunderstanding. Howard tried to defend himself, his face pale, but my husband's eyes flashed as he said, "No excuses. I'll talk to my father about you. Await your fate." No way. As Howard slumped, defeated, my sister remained stunned. Turning our backs on them, we left the scene. I was sure we would never meet them again. I walked on without looking back, feeling this in my heart. What happened afterward? Though Howard was not fired, he faced a significant pay cut and was removed from his responsible positions. Apparently, his haughty attitude towards others had been consistent, even extending to his patients, leading to his inevitable downfall. He was essentially on pins and needles and eventually left, as if fleeing. Hospital communities spread the word, and he struggled to find new employment, leading to a difficult unemployed life. As for my sister, it turned out she had been reckless with money. And despite a high salary, they were living in dire straits. That's why Howard had lost weight. It wasn't just weight loss, he looked gaunt. After Howard's pay cut, my sister quickly gave up on him and divorced him. If Howard was no good, she would find another man. That seemed to be her thinking, but it didn't work out that way. My husband had mentioned, and I had noticed at the reunion, that my once cute younger sister's face had become harsh. Perhaps her true nature was showing through. Maybe that's why her popularity had waned. "No one will date me," she complained to our parents in tears. According to her, "I'm so cute, why won't anyone dote on me?" And even, "That woman snagged a good man. I have to surpass her," she apparently said. That woman must be me. I guess the "I have to surpass her" is her country's law. My husband had said that my sister actually admired me, and maybe that was true. But that doesn't mean I can forgive her actions. In the end, without support from the home she had fled to, my sister was turned away as she got her just desserts and disappeared into the night. Her whereabouts are unknown. I'll probably never hear my sister's name again. Meanwhile, freed from the curse of my sister and her husband, I continued to live a peaceful life. A serene marriage, a passionate career, and fulfilling days. And soon, we will become a family of 3. Staring at the computer monitor, I gently stroked my growing belly.